All right, so British railway workers are currently going on strike to demand better pay and better benefits, and the British media has absolutely not been having it. They have been pissing and shitting their pants left and right, just absolutely coming out against the prospect of anybody being mildly inconvenienced by this strike, and so they have been railing against it just relentlessly. And so in response to that, we've had this guy right here named Mick Lynch, who is one of the top members within this union. He is sort of the voice, the representation for them, and so he has been making the rounds on British media, just absolutely obliterating anybody in his path, pundits and politicians alike. So I wanted to go through a couple of different videos that I've been seeing floating around Twitter, because he's really been going on every single different show and just, you know, running through a lot of these people. But first, before we get into some of those clips, I just wanted to read a little bit into some of the context so you guys are aware of exactly why they're doing this and what they're fighting for. They say here from The Guardian, 5 rail workers on the strike. There is no justification for us to get poorer every year. So they say tens of thousands of rail workers have joined Britain's biggest nationwide rail strike in 30 years. Disruption is expected for the rest of the week after 40,000 members of the RMT union voted to strike over pay and conditions. Here, 5 rail workers share their views on the decision to take industrial action. And they say on the national rail side, the strike has to do with pay and cuts to staffing. But for the TfL staff, it's about terms and conditions, not pay. On the Victoria line, we have been striking for the last 6 months on night tube services that have been implemented without our agreement. We're fighting against this because of fatigue, carrying responsibilities. There are various reasons we didn't want to work night tube. It's not in our contract. They also say we want to keep the staffing to pre-pandemic levels for safety. We've got stations that are unmanned, and if anything happens, there's nobody on those stations. And they say during the COVID pandemic, we had a lot of staff with COVID, a lot of staff with long COVID. We've had colleagues pass away, yet we still ran a full service as best as we could. I think a lot of the staff have just about had enough. We want some long-term funding. We want to keep London running. We want to keep our jobs, and we want to keep the conditions we've got now. Seem like perfectly reasonable demands. And finally, they say nobody I work with wants to go on strike. We enjoy our work, and signalers are paid well, but there is no justification for us to get poorer every year. We have a very responsible job. The first line of the job advert says signalers are the guardians of safety. We worked through the pandemic not questioning the pay freeze or the withholding of annual bonuses, but now inflation is seriously affecting our standard of living. And they finish off here saying the government wants to shed thousands of maintenance positions, which will have terrible effects on punctuality, as faults will not be attended to in a timely manner, and it will in turn make my job harder, not to mention the effect it will have on the safety of traveling in public. It will create delays. So those are the basic outlines of exactly what they're fighting for here. Better pay, better benefits, increased staffing numbers so that they're not as spread thin as they are right now. So pretty basic demands that you would think could be met pretty reasonably from a lot of these different private entities and public entities that are working on a lot of these different rail networks within the UK. But nonetheless, the British media and British conservative politicians have been, again, freaking out, pissing and shitting their pants over this prospect of being inconvenienced by this strike that is ongoing. So here to start us off, we have a British politician here who is going to basically be trying to use the narrative of veterans not being able to get to their armed services day with a whole host of other reasons in order to push back against Mick Lynch, who is going to absolutely steamroll over him.
That 3% is a very good offer on the table with modernisation. But you've heard, even now Network Rail are moving to a position where they're saying we will go above 3% with modernisation. And Mick's talking about, you know, modernisation is a scary thing. Modernisation such as installing an app on your phone so you can communicate better with your workers, or having sensors on trains to detect deficiencies in the rail network, I don't think are controversial things. I think they're good things because they means that drivers are safer, and ultimately, or people on the rail line as well are safer. And that's what we want to see, the best health and safety we can. And what Mick's doing is undermining the rail network. We know passenger numbers are down by about 20% to pre-pandemic levels. We are in a world where we want to get to a place where we have net zero. That means encouraging more people onto public transport. These strikes are only going to drive people further away from it, and the pay rise that Mick wants will therefore just add more cost to the rail network, making it more unaffordable for more working people. He should be apologising to the doctors and nurses who can't get to hospital, the patients who can't get their operation, the kids who will miss out on their education today, but also those armed forces veterans who risk their lives for our freedoms, who won't be able to celebrate Armed Forces Day on Saturday.
Do you want to apologise for all that, Mick?
Well, I think Jonathan should apologise for talking nonsense. None of that is true. We have got automated technology on trains. We've got pantograph cameras. We've got ultrasonic sensors. We've got things that detect faults on tracks. That is all rubbish. I negotiated that deal with Network Rail myself. We've got on-train technicians, all sorts of new technology that is being deployed. So that is just stuff that's written in Conservative Central Office for backbench MPs to spout along with their ministers.
Mick. Okay, so no
now,
sorry to
I
veterans.
don't want this disruption. I don't want people to be
Good to know veterans are gonna be left
inconvenienced, and I
without
want a
celebration.
settlement to this dispute. I can't do that with a backbench MP who's just learned it off a script.
Well, hang on. Let
We
him
know
respond.
what the-
Well,
we
let him
know what
respond
the
to that.
issues are.
Let me respond.
Okay, so number one, the biggest thing that stood out to me is this, journalist who is on the BBC, right? This is the BBC. And this journalist is being completely one-sided in this entire interview. I mean, she literally looked at him straight in the eyes and had the audacity to say, do you have anything to say to the veterans? To the veterans who you are inconveniencing. They aren't going to be able to get to Armed Forces Day for this celebration. How dare you? I mean, that's the type of rhetoric that they are using. And really, this conservative politician here, he hit all of the different high notes. He uses climate change as a justification for being anti-union in this way. He uses, potential increased costs to workers, which isn't even true, by the way. If you give them the demands that they are asking for right now, there's no reason to believe that fares in the London subway system are going to go dramatically up. He's just completely pitting every single different issue against this union, bringing up climate change, bringing up veterans, bringing up hospital workers, nurses, and surgeons, and people who need operations, hitting every single high note in order to push back against this union, and really just doing anti-union propaganda. And really, if you want to cut through all of the bullshit here, the easiest way that you could actually get the rail lines up and running and stop this strike isn't by coming out here and trying to get him to apologize to the veterans who are going to miss Armed Services Day. The way that you would actually get this strike stopped immediately is by meeting their demands, is by giving them better pay and better benefits that they very clearly deserve in this instance. So that's just the first clip. Believe me, we have plenty more here to go through. Here's Piers Morgan, one of the worst journalists to ever come out of Britain, but here he is basically pushing Mick Lynch on his Facebook profile, okay, his actual Facebook profile, instead of talking about any of the substantive things and what the people who are on strike are actually asking for in this instance. He specifically brings up and focuses in on his Facebook profile picture.
What I believe is your Facebook page. I want you to confirm or deny if this is your Facebook page. It's a picture of
Can you see the
the hood
likeness?
from Thunderbirds.
Can you see the likeness?
Well, I'm just wondering where the comparison goes, because he was obviously an evil, criminal, terrorist mastermind, described as the world's most dangerous man who wreaked utter carnage and havoc on the public.
Is that the level you're pitching this at, Piers? That is a joke amongst me and my friends, and you can see the likeness if you like.
So you're
He's a
not
bald
denying
man
that
with
you
big
are
eyebrows.
comparing yourself to the hood?
I'm not comparing myself to anyone. I'm me.
You've literally made your profile picture the hood. And I'm simply saying, I was
so
a massive.
what? If it was a
I
bunch
was
of
a
flowers,
Thunderbirds fan,
if
and the
I
hood
was-
was
if
the
it was a
most
bunch of
dangerous,
flowers, would I be a
evil
hippie or
person
what?
in the world.
He's the most evil puppet made out of vinyl in the world. Is that the level your journalism's at these days?
I simply asked you if that was you and your Facebook page.
Well, do you think I look like the most evil person in the world, Piers?
Well, now you're asking me to answer a difficult question, Mick. I don't know you that well.
Okay, so that's the level of journalism that Piers Morgan has to offer. I wonder why his new show that he just launched is absolutely being tanked right now in the ratings. But I mean, if this is the type of journalism you want to do, focusing on somebody's Facebook profile, insinuating that he is like a mass terrorist or somebody who is wreaking havoc on Britain as a whole, just completely ridiculous line of questioning here. And again, he pushes back against that. But just another really short clip that we had here where he straight up tells this politician here that he doesn't even know who she is. I thought this was kind of funny.
About my background or my community or where I come from. So,
I can't even see you. I don't even know who you are. So
well, there you go. So, don't tell me who I am and whether I'm working class or whatever, any of those sorts of
you
things.
weren't working class. I don't even know your name.
Well, shouldn't you, Mick? She's, Jenny Chapman, she's on Labour's front bench.
Yeah, but I can't see her because I'm sitting in a remote studio.
No, I know. All right.
Or how many of you there are?
That's not really the point. The point that I really want to get across is that what the Labour Party thinks should happen.
Okay, short little clip there. I just thought that one was kind of funny, but this was really the worst of all of the ones that I came across. Here you got another journalist here. I guess her name is Burley, and she just will not stop this line of questioning, trying to imply that these workers who are on strike right now are going to like violently assault other people who break the picket line and go into work. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Bring in agency workers. My question to you is, I'm guessing that some of your members will still stay on the picket lines. What will they do if agency workers try to cross those picket lines?
Well, we will picket them. What do you think we'll do? We run a picket line and we'll ask them not to go to work. Do you not know how a picket line works?
What do they do anyway? I very much know how a picket line works. I'm much older than I look, Mr. Lynch. What will picketing involve?
Well, you can see what picketing involves. I can't believe this line of questioning. Picketing is standing outside the workplace to try and encourage people who want to go to work not to go to work. What else do you think it involves?
And what if they want... Well, I just wondered what else it might involve, because I very well remember the picket lines of the 1980s,
where are you going with your...
Mr. Lynch. I'm asking you what your members would do, Mr. Lynch.
Which picket lines are you talking about?
The miners' strikes. Miners' strike.
Yeah. Well, does it look like the miners' strike? What
No,
are
it
you
doesn't,
talking
Mr.
about?
Lynch, and I'm just asking, I'm just to clarify.
Gone off into
I'm
the
just
world
trying
of
to
the
clarify.
surreal.
No, Miss
What are you
Lynch, and I'm
talking-
sorry if you feel the need to ridicule me, but I'm just asking you what you expect your members
But
to
your
do
questions
if
are
agency workers...
verging into the nonsense.
I'm
we will
asking
picket
you...
as effectively
No, they're
as
not.
we can.
And what does that involve?
Look, there it is. That's what it involves.
So you won't stop agency workers crossing the picket line.
We will try to stop agency workers crossing the picket line by asking them not to go to work. What is it you're suggesting we will
And if
do?
they... I'm just asking you. I'm trying to clarify for the benefit of the British public who are being stopped from travelling around the country, Mr. Lynch. I'm just trying to clarify exactly what your
is it
members
you're
will
trying
do.
to clarify?
Ask politely. Thank you for...
I'm replying to you
want
politely.
to answer the question.
What we will...
OK, Mr. Lynch.
I've answered the question about 6 times. If there are people trying to cross the picket line, we ask them not to cross it.
I'm asking...
All right, so listen, I mean, she literally posted this clip on Twitter thinking that he was the one who was looking flustered throughout this entire interview. I mean, she's just relentlessly trying to imply that they're going to, like beat up or stomp on another, worker who crosses the picket line. I mean, you shouldn't ever cross a picket line, but they're not going to just, like, resort to violence immediately. They're out there picketing, and you could literally see a rolling video of an example of exactly what this looks like in the background. And he's just saying, listen, we're just going to picket people. It's a fucking picket line. We're going to be out there. We're going to ask people not to go to work, stand in solidarity with the workers who are making these demands for better pay, better benefits, and that's it. There's nothing deeper about it. There's no grand plot against the British people, but that's the line of questioning that she chooses to focus in on there. So, I mean, I think he absolutely killed it. I hope that they keep bringing him on a lot of these different shows, because he's really just exposing the British media for the complete corporate frauds that they are, and coming out here and pretending as if this is the greatest threat to the British people, instead of it being, an ongoing series of corruption and, a lack of pay, a lack of increased benefits, etc. for these workers. I mean, their demands are not crazy. It's just, meet their basic demands and then the strike will be over. It's not that complicated, but instead they're choosing to focus on all of this other bullshit. But I want to finish off here with a clip here from Ash Sankar, I believe her name is, who is a British activist who is frequently making the rounds on a lot of these different shows as well. And she really just summarizes here exactly what they're fighting for and why unions have historically and in the modern sense been so important, not just in Britain, but basically you can take this exact same line that she is going with here and apply it to really any country, but especially here in the United States as well.
There'll be a lot of people waking up this morning who will be saying we have this horrific cost of living squeeze. Fuel costs have gone up dramatically. Even yesterday, they've gone up the most they have in 17 years. Energy prices are soaring. The last thing we need is the threats of rail action, which means on those 3 days when I have to go to work, I can't use my car because it's too expensive. I've got to go on the train, and now I can't do that either.
I'd actually flip it the other way around, all right? In a context where the cost of living crisis is being paid for by ordinary workers, the thing that you need are strong unions and the ability to collectively bargain for better pay and conditions. Now, why the RMT are striking, which is, I notice, not something people have talked about, is that workers who had been keeping the railways running during the pandemic are being threatened with job cuts and a pay freeze, which would mean that their pay isn't keeping up with inflation. And so that's why the union is doing their job and saying, we will use our strength, which is the fact that you can't run this without us to protect and defend our workers' conditions. That is the job of a trade union. And if it's so important to keep the railway running, because I agree, these workers are totally essential, then the bosses should be coming up with a reasonable package that the workers can accept. Every single person in this country has benefited from rights which have been secured by trade unions and the right to strike, including minimum wage, maternity pay, sick pay. These are all things which, before they were made law, were won by trade unions, and they benefited everybody. Because you're essentially selling a myth to the people of this country. You're saying, well, if you ask nicely, if you play nicely, if you're a good little boy or girl, maybe the bosses will take pity on you. That's not how it works. Workers have one form of power, and that is collective bargaining, and every right we have as workers in this country has been secured by playing hardball.
She's right, and you know, honestly, if anything, that's somewhat of an understatement. I mean, I don't know the history specifically within Britain, but I know here in the United States, it has been very specifically militant labor organizing. People, in many cases, actually resorting to violence in order to defend themselves and their, collective ability to make demands for higher pay, better benefits, and just the basic necessities. I mean, if you want to talk about the 40-hour work week, if you want to talk about even the weekends that we have here in the United States, or, as she was saying, I mean, many of those policies we still don't have here in the United States, like guaranteed maternity leave or paid sick leave as a universal thing that is applied to every worker. But nonetheless, I mean, even the modicum of better benefits, better pay, etc. that we have here in the United States has been won by militant labor unions. And so this cuts through to a core fundamental principle when it comes to a socialist or a Marxist analysis of the capitalist system, and that is the labor theory of value, which is something she was kind of touching on there in that clip, which means basically that, all of this value that we create within our economy, no matter which sector you want to look at it, it's not the bosses, it's not the Jeff Bezos of the world or the Elon Musk of the world that is creating the inherent value in our economy. It is the everyday, workers who are showing up, delivery drivers at Amazon, the people who are working at the warehouses, stocking the shelves, etc. It is those people that are actually providing the underlying value within a capitalist economic structure. And so the lesson from that is to understand that if you as workers collectively organize and you get together, you form a sort of union, and then you are willing to engage in strikes. In some cases, they have to resort to militant action, specifically throughout history. But you engage in this collective bargaining. You go on strike. You use your labor as your biggest point of leverage in order to extract demands from the capitalist class. You are never going to get it by asking nicely, as she was just saying in that clip. You're never going to get it by going by yourself as an individual to your boss and saying, "Look, I've been doing a great job. Please give me better pay, better benefits." No, you are much better off if you go there with your entire workforce and you make demands. And if those demands are not met, you go on strike. And so again, really what this comes down to is a fundamental, inherent contradiction or conflict within the capitalist system between the wealthy capitalists, the people who own the assets, and the workers who are actually providing the value. And, in many cases, like with these rail workers, they're often called essential workers. These are the people who are keeping our society running. But then when they come out and they ask for just basic increases to pay to keep up with inflation, or better working conditions, or better staffing, so that they aren't as stretched thin as they are right now, then suddenly they're like the villains within society. Suddenly they're bringing about the collapse of the British economy and British society in general. It's just complete fucking bullshit. And honestly, watching through a lot of these clips has really made me question, and I know, how terrible the US media is here in this country. I talk about it almost every day, going through different articles and different news clips, etc. But goddamn, the British media is so fucking atrocious. I mean, even from the BBC, even from these other so-called, well-respected outlets and stuff, just being brazenly one-sided on the side of capital against the side of the workers in this specific instance. So, I hope that they keep bringing him on the show, and I hope that he keeps making the rounds and just absolutely demolishing all of their bullshit talking points. And most importantly, I hope that this labor union gets every single goddamn demand that they are making right now.